sweet and smoky. Welcome to another episode of Erik Whiskey Studies, and in this video I'm going to review the Glenrothes Peated Cask Reserve Speyside Single Malt Scotch Whisky. This whiskey is made from a marriage of casks, was spirit distilled in 1992, then it was finished in a cask which previously contained peated whiskey from Islay. It is a non-age statement, bottled at 40% alcohol by volume, and sells for about $40. So there are basically three ways in which you can have a peated whiskey. The first is the traditional, in which you would dry your malted barley with smoldering peat. The second is to have smoldering peat add smoke character to your wet barley, but then air dry it. This is what is more traditionally done. Air drying is more effective and even than trying to dry your barley with the smoldering peat. The third is to use a cask that previously contained peated barley. And there are a number of different ways in which you can sort of moderate the peat levels. One, in terms of how much peat or parts per million have adhered to the barley. You can moderate the peat by using something called Coke, not like Coca-Cola or kind of Coke. It is basically a coal derivative which doesn't put out as much smoke. Other ways to moderate your peat levels is to, in your cuts from the distillation, dive a little bit deeper into the tails, and that will remove a lot of the phenols from the peat, right? And then another way is to use unmalted as well as malted barley. So different ways in which you can sort of moderate and control the peat levels. So this is actually probably around, don't know for sure, in the after effect, but in terms of the way it comes across as something with about 20 ppm, right? The ppm levels is not available since they're not actually using peated barley, but using a cask that's previously contained peated whiskey. But in terms of the perception and the way in which the peat comes across, I would estimate if you had a whiskey that was at 20 ppm, it's sort of a moderate level of peat character to it. Now on the nose, it has a chocolate note. That's actually quite nice. It comes across on the nose very candy-like. A little bit of powdered sugar there. There is some ashiness to it, but there's some chocolate and a little bit of nuttiness to it. A little bit of caramels, some vanilla, and some grilled stone fruit. Now, there are a couple other whiskeys that I have reviewed that have also been peated in the same fashion. One is the Glenlivet Nadura Peated Cask. Typically, these are 60 and plus ABV. Depends on the bottle. This one's at 61.5, sells for about $70, and I actually really like this one. The other is the Dunaville's Belfast 3 Crowns Blended Irish Whiskey. It's also, as is the Glenlivet Nadura and this Glenrothes, spent some time in a peated cask. This one's bottled at, I believe, 40% alcohol by volume, and it's just sort of an okay whiskey. The Glenrothes, on the other hand, I really like it. 40 ABV. I'll be honest with you, going into it, I kind of had some preconceived ideas as to what to expect. I wasn't expecting much. $40. That's a moderate, pretty affordable price for whiskey going these days. So 40 ABV, $40. I really wasn't expecting all that much, but I found that I liked it a lot more than I thought it would. It's not the most overly complex. It doesn't have a lot of development. But what is there, I actually like. So it's got the sort of confectionery sugar. You ever eat sort of a treat and it's got powdered sugar on it, and even before you stick the treat in your mouth, let's say it could be a brownie with powdered sugar on it, you can kind of get a whiff of the powdered sugar. I get that. Caramels, there's a little bit of nuttiness. There's a little bit of grilled stone fruits, a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of honey. So it's got citrus going on there as well as stone fruits. On the palate, medium to light in body. Doesn't have a ton of variation. It's sweet pretty much all the way through from front to the back. Get that powdered sugar note. Get a little bit of chocolate. get medium amount of smoke. It does finish on the ashy side. In fact, that's a trait that I have found with all these whiskeys aged in casks that previously contained peated whiskey, is the remnant you're getting from the cask is going to be mostly ash and not so much of the oceanic brininess or other characteristics as you would get from a normally peated whiskey. A little bit of citrus, orange and lemon, light caramels, light vanilla. The intensity is moderate. Length is medium to low. Not a lot of variation. Slightly thin to medium in terms of weight on the palate. Not a lot of breadth, not a lot of depth, right? It's a simple, mildly peated whiskey with some slightly sweet stone and citrus notes, right? It's not a wowzer. It's not something, it's going to really surprise you. It's just sort of okay. It's a moderately priced whiskey with minimal ABV for a whiskey, moderate variation in aromas and flavors. And so it is what it is. It's just an okay whiskey. It does okay on ice. Personally, if I had maybe a hyper peated whiskey, right, that's really, really strong and really over intense, and I wanted to back it up a little bit, right, another whiskey, maybe, I don't know, an Ardbeg Supernova or, say, a Balcones peated, right, from Texas at 60, something like around 62.5% ABV, something that's just like smacking upside the head. This would actually be a good whiskey to sort of blend with those if you wanted to back off the intensity and the extremes of those whiskeys. Or a whiskey in which you don't want to focus on it, but focus on watching the television, focus on reading a book, focus on conversations, but you feel like having just a little bit of whiff of a smoke character. So it's an all right whiskey at I think a fairly decent price. If you can get it for less than $40, I would say definitely buy. Would I pay more than $50 for it? No, because there are still on the market, your Ardbeg 10s now running $55. I'll take that any day over this. I mean, hands down, right? There are some other peated whiskeys in the $50 to $60 range that would easily beat this. But it's an okay whiskey for what it is. So what I'm going to give it in terms of score, I'm going to go solid 85 points. A solid 85 points. Alrighty, that's it for this review. If you like watching my reviews and you've not yet subscribed, I'm going to ask you to subscribe. Ring the bell to be notified when I go live or post a new video. And if you are one of my Patreons, I want to thank you very much for supporting this work. All right, until next time, cheers.